Hey everyone, I'm sorry logging on a couple minutes late tonight. There we go. We were having a little bit of a camera problem with my guest, but it seems like it was solved. She had graciously agreed to do audio only, but I see her down there in the green room, so that's wonderful. So tonight's guest is a channeler of the divine wisdom spirit Pax. A couple years ago, and we'll talk about this when she comes on. I had an opportunity. I was sent a book by a publicist where basically Carole channeled answers for another person about pressing issues on the earth, and we're going to talk about that just for a little. It was very interesting to me because 50% of that book was in the voice of Pax. It was Pax's wisdom, yet Pax didn't have a credit in the book, and Pax very much has a credit in this book. Look at this beautiful cover. Soul healing, breaking the chains of past life influence. And you can see right there my guest, Carole Serene Borgens, and really my two guests tonight, and I'll find out how that works, and the divine spirit wisdom source Pax. So before I roll the opening, I'm just going to say that Carole is an intuitive medium. And as you all know, I'm married to a very skilled intuitive medium. So my belief is 100%, my trust, and still have questions and interest about all of this, and of course about Pax. I'm gonna just get this out of the way right now, so I don't have to do it later. I have not only studied past lives for over a decade and read very compelling cases, joined Tanya in readings where we were basically told that a young child that had passed away, who was coming to see their family, that Tanya was acting as an intermediary for, had already chosen their new family. So for me, that's it. That's end of questions there. It's a very interesting thing. I've already chosen my new family, which is wonderful. So I'm a believer there. And then as far as channeling, I've said it in my book reviews of both of the books that Carole wrote or was involved in. That first one, I look at like Daryl and Bashar. I look at Esther Hicks and Abraham, on and on. The spirit Emmanuel, right, that Ram Dass was involved with. There's something to this. And if you watch channelers, I believe Carole does automatic writing, but I'll check with her if she actually does channel Pax. You see changes that as an actor, as an acting teacher, as a writer, you absolutely cannot account for. And those of you who don't know, science is on the side of channeling. Some channels have been hooked up to different neurological tests, and the rate of their brain firing changes, which should not happen, even though we have neuroplasticity. So I'm just putting this all onto you tonight because please enjoy this ride. Take the wisdom, because I am 100% in on all of this. And so I'm so excited to have Carole with us. I've done some of the exercises in the book. I've done some of my own past life regression, which I'd never done before. As you know, live on this show a couple years ago, I was regressed to a past life where I died alone in a jungle by a fire, all by myself. That was live. Sometimes I've had dreams where I've spontaneously remembered past lives, but never before have I regressed myself back. And that's all through Carole's book here, and she'll help you do it if she wants to. So if you want, I'm sure she will. That's part of what she does. So anyway, welcome. It's episode. I don't think it's 100. Yeah, it's episode 198. That is something else, folks. So to roll the opening, bring Carole back, and I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful hour.
There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, the couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms.
All right. So without any further ado, please welcome my guests tonight, Carole Serene Borgens and the Spirit Wisdom Source Pax. Hello.
Hello, hello. May I say how much I enjoyed your intro music as well as the message. I am very much at home here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned the music because I get to brag as a dad. That's my son who is in the music composition program at Berklee School of Music now.
Well,
so thank you.
He's acing it.
Thank you. Yeah, we are super proud of him. So welcome. I believe that you are at home here. You heard a little bit in my opening. I don't want to, I just want to let people know where I stand so that you and I can move forward having a conversation. As we say here on Into the Outer Realms, this is where the paranormal and the supernatural are the normal and the natural. So
definitely home for me.
I'd like to begin by just getting a little bit of your background. Were you always tapped into larger intelligences from the time that you were small, or did something happen in your life? Or let us know.
No, no one thing happened. I was always there. Simply, I did not know it yet as a child. As I look back on my childhood as an only child, and living in such lovely places, but pardon me, with no playmates around, I became quite comfortable playing on my own. And as I review it now in my mind, I see what I was doing was scenes from past lifetimes that I was playing out. For example, as a, 5, 6-year-old, I used to go out on the street in front of our house with a couple of sticks and make a cross on the sidewalk and do a pretty good job of a Scottish sword dance. Now, my background is Russian, Romanian, and German culture in this lifetime. So take from that what you will. I also spent an awful lot of time by myself in the forest, creeping through, perfecting my skills as a First Nations warrior, not making any sounds as I was hunting in the forest. Those were examples of childhood connections that I had no idea of their source. Pardon me. As I grew older, I had developing some gifts of, clairsentience and the abilities to just, as my mother used to say, of her own mother, just knowing things. She just knew things. And so I came from a bit of a lineage of people who just seemed to know things. It was later, and certainly as an adult, when I was really studying everything I could metaphysical, with a focus on everything that Edgar Cayce wrote or was written about, and fascinated with the notion of past lifetimes and regression, and took that on as a study. and practiced that, and intuitiveness grew. And throughout that period of time, I thought that I wanted to learn about automatic writing. I'm not sure why. It must have been in a book that I read, and I wanted to learn it. And I tried over the years. By the way, it is how I channel PACs now.
Yeah.
But I tried it over the years, gave up on it, retried, and I was never able to do it. And as I review that time now, I recognize that I hadn't gotten a sense in my heart of how I would use it. Like, I tell people it's not a parlor game. Automatic writing is channeling. It's channeling spirit, and it's serious. And you need to know what you're doing, how you're going to use the information, and what your relationship with spirit is. So in the early 90s, as I was sitting in my office one evening and sitting with pen and paper and doing my best to channel somebody, anybody, there were spirits coming through that they will just want to make contact with anyone, just to communicate. They're kind of stranded, and that's what I was doing. My pen was moving and I was writing, and it was nothing. It's just people in spirit needing to communicate with anyone. And suddenly the energy changed. The energy in my hand holding the pen, the energy in my entire right arm, and as a matter of fact, the feel of the energy in the room. The handwriting changed. It became large and flowery and flowy, and the whole feeling in my arm and hand was of peace and relaxation. And I looked down and there were actual words being formed. This was PAX for the first time coming through. I was shocked and amazed, and I was also thrilled and was reading the words. And I was asked at that time if I would become the channel for this spirit, and that he had things to say, messages, because spirit was not happy with what was going on in our world at the time and had messages to share. And I was quite taken aback, and I intended to jump out of my chair and pace the floor in my office. However, I had 3 sleeping Irish wolfhounds on the carpet. And if you know that breed, they are a giant breed. And there was no spare room for my feet. So I sat there and I thought about this, and I asked for time. I could not make that commitment. What I asked for was, why me? Tell me why I am being chosen. And these are the words that I was given regarding the channeling. Because you are new at this, because you have no bad habits, and because you will change none of my words. Well, ultimately, I did agree, and that is a sacred pact that I have made with Pax and have channeled him to this day. And let me say before I say anything else, Pax is not a he or a him or an individual. Pax is a collective consciousness, the universal energy that comes through in this entity that I channel. And because I've been doing it for 25 plus years, I've taken to referring to Pax as he, but it is simply more than that. We began to write. The purpose for my being chosen was so that I could put these messages from spirit into book form and get them out to the world. Well, I had no way at that moment in time of getting a book done, but I diligently channeled daily, often as possible, and had file folders filled with the writings, which, by the way, I still have every page of. It was when I came together with the co-author of the Do Unto Earth book,
Mhm.
that the doors opened for me. That was the purpose of my being pulled in to um, channel the information for that book, because it opened the door to me of the door, the all important one, to the publisher, who has since published the rest of my books. And without that initial connection, it wouldn't have happened. So that was serendipitous. And here we are these many years later, and continue to bring the words of PAX forward, because they are all wonderfully positive. Never ever in the private readings I've done over the years or the book topics has there been a negative word
Right.
from PAX. It's always the positivity that comes through for humanity, for our environment, and for the individual, if that's who I'm working with. And that is a blessing. And Joey, because I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, apparently this was it. This was
Yeah.
reading for me.
Wow. So, I wish Tanya was sitting next to me tonight. She's in the chat room. My wife, she automatic writes and is in contact with something called the Council of Nine, and other things such as that. But I was thinking about when you were young and you were acting out those things. Our son Jeremy, who created the music for our opening, fittingly enough, he would look at Tanya. We were having dinner. He was, let's say he was 3 years old, because I think he was, and he said, we both remember it so distinctly. He said, "It's you." He said, "Remember when I used to pick you up and then you would brush my hair and we would go out to dances." And he would talk about, like, he had this realization that he and Tanya had this past partnership. And then he told us one day he woke up from his nap and he was like, he's like, the hoses are so heavy going up the stairs when there's a fire. The hoses are just so heavy that he must have been, a fireman in a past life. And we encouraged it. But then really by the time he was 4 or 5, which this is what I want to ask you. First of all, did you let your parents or others know about that? And did any of it go away naturally? And your opinion, um, is it kind of natural for most people for those to go away so they can get on with their current life? So I guess that's 3
Absolutely.
questions.
And
Yeah.
to answer your question, no, I never told my parents, because what was to tell? It was my natural world.
Mm,
Um, no, I was just playing. No, I didn't tell them. And yes, it left me, as it does for most all kids. I say most all kids when they enter school.
mhm.
It is just simply because not so much the age, but suddenly the demands, requirements, distractions of school, and it gets replaced. Yeah.
Right,
Reality
right.
is what is required of kids when they get into school. They've
Yeah,
got the homework, they've got so much to learn about how to be in school as a student, that I think the whimsy of what was theirs earlier in the remembrances of past lifetimes and experience, it is removed, it is just replaced. And yeah, I'm aware that that is common.
yeah. Terrific. So let's so my introduction to your work with PAX was through this book, Do Unto Earth, It's Not Too Late. And there were a series of smaller books too. So I got that whole package there, slim volumes. But it was interesting to me as a writer. I was like, why is PAX not getting, co-author credit on this book? It was so interesting to me. How did you go from that experience to you and Pax just co-authoring your own books?
Uh, I'm very good questions. And I met that author. I think I had done a private reading for a friend of hers. She lives in Florida. And then the author approached me for some private readings, which I did. And she suddenly, I think, had an epiphany that she could ask me anything and it would be answered by PAX. And so she decided this was going to be our next venture if I would undertake it. Because I was new at that, and I did the channeling. And by the way, that big book of over 400 pages,
Yeah.
I channeled in 10 months. That book was done in 10 months, beginning to
Wow.
end. I, again, had a publisher involved now, and it never occurred to me to ask that PAX get credit on the cover. I knew that the interior wording credited PAX, but in terms of author credit, I guess I missed that. I didn't pick up on that should have happened. It was an interesting experience, and I can tell you it would never have been done in 10 months if I was still handwriting. PAX gave me the ability years ago to channel directly at the keyboard, and I'm a fast typist, so that was made possible.
Now,
And
I'm
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask the mechanics of it. Do the words come into your head and then go through to the keyboard, or is there a shortcut?
I like to say whether I'm typing or writing, I like to say the information comes here into my crown chakra and goes through and directly out my hand in writing or typing. I sometimes hear a word or three as I'm writing. Most often I do not. It's quite common for me to be channeling at the keyboard and flying fingers. I'm channeling PAX wisdom, and I have no idea what's on the page. I have to read it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, it's not something I set out to have be the way.
Yeah.
But from the beginning, it was the way. Right. And I personally think it's brilliant because I'm not distracted. I do not have any conscious input. My conscious mind is not engaged.
Right.
I have not hit the clutch on that one. It's not engaged. My conscious mind the door is closed, and it allows me just to channel, and there's never any second guessing. That would just be a hindrance.
Right. Now, to that point, though, they said that Mozart, for instance, would write the music in his head, and then he would write it down, and there would be no erasures, no crossouts, no nothing. The text, when it comes out, no editing is done to it at all.
Correct. And that takes me right back to my original early 90s agreement from our first meeting together with PAX, that I would change none of his words. Now, having said that, my punctuation is not so great, so that gets cleaned up. I do hire a professional editor. That's a must for punctuation. But the words, no, they don't need changing. PAX is a good writer.
Yeah, a wonderful, fluid, energetic. Folks, my 16th book was published today, and my 17th book is going to be published next month. I've been a writing teacher forever, written dozens of plays and scripts, and you name it. And I will tell you, for that to come, that Carole has always amazed me about Abraham or Bashar, or it comes out so beautiful. The sentences can be complex, yet when as humans we try to write a complex sentence full of clauses and a couple different linking ideas, it's hard for the brain to wrap around. I find when you listen or read these channeled works, your brain doesn't struggle. it follows beautiful. It's a level of communication that even a very seasoned writer would take many drafts to get that level of polish.
Oh,
I
thank
love
you.
that. I love that.
Well, thank you. But firstly, congratulations on your 16th book
Oh,
publication.
thank you. Thank
Holy
you.
mackerel. I thought I was doing well at 7.
Hey, 7 is terrific. So I am unaware. So I have soul healing. You wrote to me after I had done the review and all for Due Unto Earth. Scheduling did not work out with the other author to have you as guests. I think there were too much time changes or something like that. I remember. And it was probably now, let me see. When did I read this book? I read the book in November. So I think it was probably October. I get up in the morning and I get this wonderful email from you saying, I really liked your review and would you like to read my latest book? So I'm a bit of at a disadvantage. So those other 6 books have been written since when? Prior to
Well,
Soul Healing.
the first 2 I wrote, let me say we wrote because they were channeled, are children's books. They're children's whimsical books about life in a miniature little village of porcelain houses and buildings set up as a department store display at Christmas time. The kind that you
Oh,
can see the lights on and look inside and there's little wee people in there. Well, it's a story about family who lives inside those buildings in the department store in New York about the late 1800s, and how when the lights of the store go down at night, they come to life and they're able to move around and live in there. And their cat, Flossie, is the brave one who ventures out of the window one evening and jumps down onto the floor of the department store and begins to explore. And there begin the adventures. And there's some shape shifting involved where mannequins want to become real people and real people just think that they should be mannequins. And it's all very whimsical. And it's called The Curious Adventures of Flossie the Cat. And the second one is a sequel to it, the second book about whistling swans and mermaid magic, because suddenly there's a lake appearing in this department store overnight and all that that entails. And the stories, again, 100% channeled, are teaching children in the ways of using their own problem-solving abilities, developing those skills. Everything is positive, and they think through issues and curiosities, and no violence, no anything other than happy children who and adults who are learning how to manage their lives and be joyous, and it's whimsy. They're wonderful, wonderful stories. And then there was the book about the pandemic, which we called Personal Power Can End the Pandemic. There was a lot of information that came through from PAX that I wasn't sure that we were going to be able to get out, because it spoke of the exact location, time, and why the virus escaped from the lab in Wuhan,
yeah.
China. And that was pretty controversial at the time. So it's in the Do Unto Earth book, most of it.
Yes. Yeah.
But then we've moved on to less controversial things like past lifetimes.
Yeah. Which is the subject of the book that I asked you to come on, to the soul healing. So let's see here. I'm just looking at my notes.
While you're looking, let me tell
Yeah.
your audience that the book is called Soul Healing, Breaking the Chains of Past Life Influence, which in your review, you titled it clearing past hurts for a healthier, happier now.
Oh.
And I thought, why didn't I think of that?
I like to subtitle my book reviews to make them a little more personal, but it really was so. What's wonderful here is in do unto earth, and um the author would ask a question, Pax would respond. This is a fluid dance. This is a partnership between the two of you where you're writing together. Sometimes it's your voice, then Pax comes to the floor, some with quotes that are very clear, and sometimes more fluidly. Can you describe that dance, how that unfolds, that co-authorship?
Well, yes, it's magic. When I think I am answering a question or sharing an idea, I suddenly become aware that I'm not. I suddenly become aware that Pax has stepped in. And it's a shift in the energy that which you were earlier describing, and a change in cadence, a change in language a little bit. And I just stay with it. Because without Pax, I wouldn't be here as Carole Serene. So it's likened to the student-teacher relationship or the parent-child. I think you can only watch as long as you can before you have to jump in and state your own opinion or share your own idea. And I love it when that happens. I'm usually aware that it's happening, but nothing shifts or changes. And no time elapses. I just have a moment where I think, oh, okay. And then I become curious of what am I going to write next? Because it's Pax speaking.
That's beautiful.
Oftentimes I start out with myself authoring something and it stays that way. I noticed in the Soul Healing book, whereas other paragraphs, not so much. I've started out and it's Pax that's taken over. So we are a team. What can I say?
Yeah, and a beautiful team, folks. It's a wonderful exercise. Here's what I wanted to ask: do you have a background in teaching or pedagogy?
I have a background. No,
Okay, I have a
I have
reason
a
for asking.
background in nursing,
Okay,
legal work, all over the map, sales and marketing, mostly sales and marketing.
yeah, the book. In teaching and pedagogy, we talk about scaffolding. So it's constructing your lessons. So there are certain things I need to know before I can do the next thing, before I can do the next thing. And of course, as you know, people go to school for years to do this, sometimes get a master's degree in it. And it's so beautifully done. My here was my experience, and my audience knows that when I get a book like this, I put it through its paces. If it has exercises, if it has things to do, and I mean that in the most respectful way. Um,
Understood.
and I was familiar with your work, and my own background. I was very comfortable doing so. And as you go through the book, you repeat and you add, and each time, so the first couple times in the early sections of the book when I tried to regress, I wasn't getting much, but I was learning and I stayed with it. It sounds very much like when you were learning to automatic write. I and it could be because I communicate in different ways. I have no success whatsoever as automatic writing. And I thought that was so illuminating what you said about unless you have a very clear reason, purpose to be that. I'm a channel in other ways. I know that a lot of what comes through in these 16, 17 books that I've written comes from other places, other aspects, other things, other lives. But so that I thought was wonderful. So by the time I got about a half to three quarters of the way through the book, it really started to happen. And because the intent was clear, you know, I knew exactly what I needed. So there's another response there about why the automatic writing doesn't work if you don't know what your intent is. What do you want out of this? Because I probably wanted to do it as a parlor trick. Tanya
What?
could do it. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'd really like to see what comes through if I put myself in a trance and
Mhm.
my hand starts moving. The point of all this was it is so beautifully constructed, the book, for optimal results.
Well, thank you. And I should mention too that you use the word trance. I'm not a trance channeler.
Mhm.
I'm fully aware of everything that's going on around me, therefore would be bothered by noises as well, because I'm sort of one foot in both worlds. And in terms of the scaffolding, I had not heard that term other than what goes up the side of a building under construction. I had not heard that until I read your review. That was in no way um, my accomplishment. I questioned that as I was writing because the flow of that book was that of Pax. I I almost wrote it from beginning to end, if you know what I mean, without
Yeah.
moving paragraphs around. Um, Hex has that ability, but I questioned very much to myself, why do we have these three separate processes in here that are designed to get to the same end? Except when I reread them, I recognized the three separate levels
Yeah.
and how they did scaffold up. But honestly, Joey, it wasn't until I read your review and recognized the term you used to perfectly describe what Seth or Pax intended, um, did I understand and recognize the whole thing. Sorry, I had a slip there. In the early days, Pax was known as Seth, but for all kinds of legal reasons, another name had to be chosen for publication, and so you chose one.
Right. Right, because there is right, enough said, and I'm sure the audience knows that too. That's fascinating, and thank you for explicating that because I wasn't going to ask.
Well,
Um,
it's not. I've not divulged this before, but
okay.
we're safe now. We use the word Pax, which was chosen by Pax to mean spirit messenger or messenger of peace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. So what really hooked me, right? Works have hooks. They're the things that you go, okay. First, you're drawn in by the beautiful cover, and you talk about the illustration. Tell us about the illustration here and inside.
Oh, I'm so happy to. That illustration on the cover was drawn by my beautiful mother when she was, I don't know, I'm going to say, well, it would have been about 100 years ago. She was a young teenager, I'm thinking, on the farm, Saskatchewan. She submitted that, the fairies, as I see them,
Mhm.
climbing up that spider web. She submitted it to a magazine ad art school, art contest, and won a scholarship to go to some art training, but she couldn't go.
Mm.
Um, she was just another kid on the farm and a farmhand with her brothers and couldn't go. Um, and I've had that piece of paper, which is now very yellowed, in a file forever more. And I put it in a little frame and put it up in my office. And as I was writing with Pax, the soul healing book, and throughout the book too, and all of Pax's writing is an underlying message, request, lesson, demand, if you will, that people please understand they need to reclaim their personal power, that
Yeah.
they have personal power. Everybody has a right to the life they deserve. And I was looking at this drawing and thinking, it signifies to me the reaching, the continual reaching up for higher, to be better perhaps, or to achieve or to attain. And I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, thanks, Mom. And I sent it to an artist who cleaned up the background and put in the sunrise, which wasn't there. And it was just if anyone can remember, there used to be a thing called what was the pen and ink? It was like a nib pen.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You
The
dip it in
calligraphy pens. Yeah.
and you dip it in the inkwell. So
Yeah.
that's what that was, that pen and ink drawing.
Wow.
And it inspires me because of the unwritten message, to continue to reach for higher. My mother went on to be the most creative, artistic person one could ever know. She could put her hand to anything and create beauty and usefulness, I might add, out of any kind of artistic or musical or raising a daughter endeavor. So I was just absolutely thrilled by how it fit onto the cover and looks so beautiful, and the message is there.
Yeah.
So thanks for asking.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, the audience loves it. And within, folks, is the negative space of the of the uh, of the tree, and and I open to this, Carol, and it's just perfect. Understanding and releasing the hold a past event has on you breaks the chain of connections from them to now and allows for healing. And that worked very much for me. So I know so many people, we all do, they're struggling, and it's childhood or these traumas or these things that happened to them, and you ask this and they go for years of therapy, and they never seem to get to the root of it. And yet you ask this really provocative question: what if none of this is your fault? Which becomes a really, it's a, if you know John Mack, who was the Harvard psychiatrist who did the books with possible alien abductees, and he
Oh,
almost
yes.
lost his job, and
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
he would say subvert the dominant paradigm. Well, with that question, what if none of this is your fault? Because from the time we're good little, soldiers in school, good little students or whatever, it's take responsibility for your actions and own up
Yes.
to what you've done, and this allows for the fact that possibly some of the things that we are carrying today that are holding us back are from past lives and not from now. What took you down that pathway?
To me, it's logic. It's just absolute logic that there is a direct connection between this life, past life, unresolved trauma from past lifetimes can and do affect us today. And the other piece of logic for me is it's really hard to resolve an issue if we do not understand the source of it.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? This tendency toward anger, rage, addiction, anxiety, whatever it may be. What is the source of this? Where did it come from? If it cannot be traced to anything in this lifetime, then where? And what took me down this path, I think, is the study over my lifetime of what other people have done, by whether it be Edgar Casey or looking at people, in the 60s who were looking at, there were some psychologists and medical doctors who fell into age regression of patients and trying to solve their current issues and got them back further and further, and they were yet in an earlier lifetime. That all made sense to me. And so trying to trace it and know more about it just became the natural next step. And I think that this it's magic. This, what if all these questions? What if your addiction to food? What if your aversion to food? What if your tendency towards whatever it may be was not your fault? What if you are not making the decisions? What if? And if we can say, let's investigate this and the potential for finding the answer to it in a past lifetime, and if you could view the film of that lifetime without immersing yourself in it to the extent there's any pain felt or discomfort, what if you can be an observer? And once you've had enough time with it to understand who played the roles, who did what to whom, even if you were the bad guy, you have time to come to terms with that, understand it, and ultimately to release it. Now, this is so much easier said than done.
Right.
And it might, in your review, you also state it can easily take more than one visit to that lifetime to come to an understanding of what was that trauma, what was the whole story there, so you can understand it. Ultimately, forgive, if that's a word that you use, it might be a different word, but to release any further connection to it that you have to it or it has to you. This is the ultimate intention, and you can then move on to live, as Pax says, the life you were intended and the life you are deserving of.
Right. Right. I thought that message was wonderful. First of all, you were speaking the language of story, which I love. So my 17th book that's coming out is my storytelling book. It's taken decades to write this book, and I talk a lot about the magical what if, the role of imagination in visualization and in problem solving. All of this, all imagining what you wish to become, and that gap is where the magic happens. Right? Here's where we are. Here's where we'd like to be. That journey, that life journey, is closing that gap, which was wonderful. And then I'm thinking of, okay, like you think of these. It always happens with the abduction stuff, with the alien abduction stuff, where people are right there and they're reliving it and they're yelling and they're screaming and they're sweating. Tanya and I, and the audience knows this, and I'm not going to take your time with it. Tanya and I had an otherworldly experience, 2.5 hours of missing time in a parallel dimension, all that. And it was 9 years before someone said to us, you should do a regression. And Tanya had gotten her certification in hypnosis by that time. She had gotten a soul contact certification from the Edgar Cayce Institute. And so we were very comfortable. Because, when you watch TV, from mesmerism to hypnosis to, the Bud Hopkins kind of thing and all that, Betty and Barney Hill and
Yes,
Streeper and all that, that film Fourth Kind, it was amazing to me to go, hey, wait a minute, because that was our experience. If you listen to the audio recordings of Tanya and I, we're very calm. We're simply describing what we're seeing. And I was so grateful and so excited that you said that. You said, look, just watch it as a film. You don't have to emotionally torture yourself. This is something you can look at and you can watch. And I will say, some of them came back to me easier than others. Some of them I really had to revisit, just like a really complicated film, right? An M. Night Shyamalan movie or a Chris Nolan movie. They're complicated, so you want to watch them numerous times. Once you know the end, then you could travel back and you have an easier time tracking the unfolding. So thank you so much for that. That's such an important message that people don't have to torture themselves.
Oh, thank you for focusing on that, because that's absolutely true. And the other descriptor I like to use is as though you are watching a stage play.
Yeah.
If the curtain comes down, are you in a parallel universe? Well, there's something going on behind the curtain. raise the curtain, and there's the scene. And for some people, the stage play, because it would be slower moving, perhaps, seems to be of greater comfort, whereas for others, the film perhaps advances too quickly. So either a stage play or whichever is most realistic. But the focus, again, as written in the book, is you do not, it's like we're in this world, but not of it. You would be in that world, but not of it. You
Yeah.
would be witnessing, but not experiencing, and with any emotions that will be detrimental to you at all. And suppose for each person it is different, but if there's anything actually felt viscerally by it, it would be perhaps relief,
Mhm.
and release.
Yeah, I felt the relief of going, "Oh, that's why." So for me, it was, and I mentioned this in my review, there are certain things in my career that hold me back. And I always thought, "Oh, well, because of my childhood and this and that, nobody believed in me and that." But I worked through so much of that, if not all of it, have achieved some level of success, and yet there are still these things. And I was able to sort through some of those to see the things. Now, what I want to ask you, because the hour's going by so quickly, is how all of this relates to karma, right? Because there are people who say, "Oh, the karma are these burdens of your past mistakes," and that takes us right back to responsibility, which kind of negates maybe this isn't your fault. So you do mention karma in the book, but could you talk a little about that?
Yes, what Pack says about is this karma, karmic debt or karmic fulfillment or whatever. He says, don't even think for a moment that your higher self, your spirit guides want you to suffer any kind of karmic debt playing out when this procedure, this process is available to you to remove anything that you know as karma, which is often, if not always, associated with pain and suffering in
Yeah,
some way.
yeah,
Pax is saying you have the ability to review what was, relate it to what is, and release what shouldn't be with you today. There is no reason in the world to carry any kind of what would be titled karmic debt and allow it as a powerless person to play out in your life in a detrimental way. He separates them completely. Do not believe that you need to, he didn't use the term victim, but you do not need to wait for the bad things to happen because of something that you've done in a past lifetime. You can take a different stance on that and be proactive and go back to what was and rectify where needed.
right.
Does that answer it?
Oh, it does, and I hope the audience agrees with me. That's such a powerful message. That's the way that I've always felt. My karma seems to be in the present and remains in balance. So if I get a little too excited about something prematurely, or I get a little too down about something, something will come that will re-level it for me. So that's how I've always seen karma. But so many people go, "Oh, I get this karma," or "What the hell did I do in my past lifetime to
Yes.
deserve this?" And they talk that way. So thank you for that answer. The other
Yeah,
thing I
and
wanted, oh, go ahead.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. And again, Joey, that's a part of the PAX mantra. You have the power.
yeah,
Take your power. Do not sit and wait for karma to hit you in the backside. That doesn't have to happen.
yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's what I learned in my spiritual training on my journey. It's the universe will give you a nudge it'll give you another nudge, and it'll give you a shove. But it's for you. It's the whole Neil Donald Walsh thing of what happens to you happens through you, and happens through you happens for you.
Oh, yes,
So
absolutely.
so
It's
as
true.
these things come up, yeah. So I notice you said you don't want to use the word victim, or Pax doesn't use the word victim, but being a writer, and it's been very helpful on my spiritual journey, the idea of archetypes. So
Yes.
Carolyn Mace says that there are four that we sort of all have, and that's the inner or eternal child. You mentioned that one. But then there's also the victim, the saboteur, and the prostitute. Well, if you're carrying that and you're going, oh, well, that's just my saboteur, that's just my, again, using this system, this process, as you say, you can do away with that.
Mhm.
You can go back and you can look at, because we've all done it. We've all sabotaged ourselves in a
Oh, yes.
circumstance.
Yes, yes.
We've all prostituted ourselves. The audience knows the story of how someone tapped into my ego when I was a frustrated, ambitious young artist in my 20s, and it cost me over $20,000 because I
Oh,
got scammed. Um,
um,
but that was coming face to face with the prostitute,
sure.
you know. So I think too, and I say it in the book review, the first step is to figure out what is from now that can be accounted for. Um, but then it is those lingering things that I went, okay, let's try this. And I went back and witnessed um where what's holding me back played out on the stage. And I think that's wonderful. The stage is a slower pace. It's textual, it's dialogue rather than visual, and visual happens very fast and we can get lost in it. So I think that that image works very, very well of the mechanics of story and how story presents. Huh, I want to make sure to because the hour's coming to an end here, talk a little bit about and you talk about the personal power, but the book is, especially the final third, when you're really getting into the meat of it, um about affirmations, but especially personal power seeds.
Oh, you know how important they are to all of us. Um, there are so many affirmations in the book, and they range from quite mild and gentle reminders to more emphatic statements of who we really are, if we will believe it, about our strengths, and what Pax calls the personal power seeds, which are seriously instructive, I think, in kind of a little bit like a knock on the side of the head when we forget our greatness. We are being reminded by spirit, by our higher selves, talking throughout the book about trusting in self, small s, and self, capital S, the latter referring to our higher selves that are always with us, all of our wisdom that is traveled within our souls, lifetime through lifetime, and bear witness to the fact that we have greatness within us. We sometimes forget it, and we are to be reminded by these personal power seeds that we're not only good, we're not only great, but we are in control. We talk about the change that one person can make in their family, in their neighborhood, in their city and town, right up to globally. And this is a strong reminder to not just think that you are capable of what you think you are, but you are capable of what you may not have even considered yet. And the personal power that lies within a person is not to be denied, questioned, poo-pooed, or otherwise um, not taken seriously. These power seeds are a reminder. When you read them, when you say them to yourself as an affirmation, preferably out loud and repeatedly, you should feel it in your chest or your solar plexus, in your heart. You should feel the warmth and the love of the guidance and trust that Spirit has in you, that comes through in these words. These words are key, I think, to growing our personal strength and power, all the way from intellectually through every fiber, every cell in our body needs reminding that we have what it takes to do whatever it is that we want. And even if we don't know yet that we want it, we too can make a difference globally. And that goes hand in hand with the use of these personal power seeds, affirmations, as a reminder, and to be regularly used. And it's almost like if you're a young plant, and you get a little shot of fertilizer, and up you grow stronger. That's what these can do for us.
Right. So what I'd like to before I give you an opportunity to let people know where to get your books, how to contact you, what the services you provide and all. This is we're in a tough time right now. War, a very uncertain election, the age of AI, all of these things. What is PAX telling you, sharing with you that you and PAX are sharing right now in this moment that we can navigate? Because I always try to help the audience. I always say, keep your vibration high, right? Keep your light lit. Each one of it, it's like the starfish. Not only can we just save that one, but we can do our thing. I was reading, I edit a rhetorical studies journal, and rhetoric is an interesting thing. I love language, but it can be used as a weapon. And someone terribly misinterpreted Voltaire's "Tend Your Own Garden." And this philosopher rejected that, said by only tending your garden, your patch, you're rejecting the larger humanity. But I kind of think if we're keeping our vibration lit, we're staying positive, we're paying it forward, we're smiling instead of yelling, we're communicating instead of confronting. Is this good wisdom for this time? Is that?
Well, yes, I think you've hit it right on the head. The tending your own garden, I can also take to mean to continue to keep your own flame burning brightly, and that is your flame of commitment. Pax has been telling us for some time. I can share with you that for Spirit, he's really big on corporate greed being a
Yeah.
very, very bad
Yeah.
thing. Corporate
Yep.
greed, politics, along those lines. And Pax's guidance is to keep our own flame lit, continue to tend our garden in that we don't deviate from our faith, our trust, our beliefs, but that we continue to share our message. When Pax tells us that each person should remember that when they throw a pebble into the pond, the ripples will spread far and wide and touch all the edges all around that pond. And he likens that to each person's message and how each of us can influence what's happening around us. And again, he goes back to you too can influence globally. So my take would be, based on Pax's guidance, be true to yourself, continue to trust in yourself, speak your truth, always speak your truth, in a non-confrontational manner, but walk the walk, walk the talk, and do, each of us, if we can do our best non-confrontationally to expose the corruption, where we find it, and offer solutions, options to saving planet Mother Earth from extinction. And this is our journey now, to find ways, each of us, to bring light. If we can't find the light in our world, we are to be the light. We are to bring the light to those around us and show ways to do better for humanity and for our planet as best we can.
Right. I guess there's one more thing I want to ask, and I always like to clear up ambiguities and ask someone who knows better than most. A lot of people, I think, try to use channelers like tarot cards as fortune tellers, as future predictors, and all. It seems that Pax is commenting on what's going on right now, but not saying, "Here's what it looks like in 5 years. Here's what it looks like in 10 years." Is that the case?
Yes, that's absolutely the case. Good catch.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that.
No.
He answers what I ask, and sometimes elaborates quite a bit, because, in case you're thinking that spirit is not, has no emotion attached, that doesn't seem to be the case. There's a great deal of it that comes through. If I ask specifically, I will get a specific answer. This applies to when I'm channeling generally, or if I'm doing a private reading for someone and they ask a general question, I have to stop and say, I can't work with that question because you'll get a general answer, and that's not what you want. Be specific. So I have to do that as well, because Pax is not, interestingly, one to want to become immersed in present day political strife, and tends to want to keep the level of his guidance higher, by helping us to know what we personally are capable of, pumping us up so we can get out there and take our own personal power and try to make a difference, rather than saying who's going to win the election and what that's going to mean for humanity.
Right.
He avoids that. And
Right.
I'm fine with that, because there are other ways of discerning between myself and spirit, what's going on and where we need to be focusing our healing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So you mentioned doing private readings. Now's the time where you do the commercial for you. So the audience has heard. How is the best way for them to get in touch with you, to seek out your services and wisdom? And
Thank you.
guidance?
I can say that I discontinued doing private readings while putting the last couple of books together.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just about to get. I'm on the cusp of getting back to it. My name and my website are the same, Carole with an E, Carole Serene Borgens.net. And I'm just about to add it. You can contact me anytime through the contact page there. But I'm just about to add a scheduling feature and another page to inform that I'm back to doing private readings. Private readings are really fun with Pax. He's got a great sense of humor. He has enabled me to be a medium as well. So it's very common for us to be asked to connect with somebody who's crossed over. And we're generally very, if they remain there, we're successful in offering that. It is lengthy, generally, at least an hour or two. I can scale that back. But it's a joy, because, again, it's guidance, it's love, it is positive. And if we can serve as a medium at the same time, well, it's a double blessing. So CaroleSereneBorgens.net.
Got
And
that.
soon there will be a scheduling page added.
Wonderful.
And we'll do it
Okay.
by Zoom. And the reason I discontinued too is through COVID, I wasn't doing in person, and I had never done any other way. So I've since joined the tech world and can now do Zoom readings. So
Awesome.
it's very good. Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, Amazon the best way to get your books, including the children's books, or is there another way?
They're all there. They're
Good.
all there. They're all there on the website with a link to Amazon, or you can simply go on to Amazon and enter my name
Yep.
or a book name, and the page comes up with all of them on it. I have an author page, and they're all displayed.
Terrific. I have to get the children's book. That just sounds amazing. It sounds like
The two of them are, and I can tell you that both Volume 1 and Volume 2 have been purchased very often by adults. They're
Yeah.
a fun read for adults, and specifically if you've got grandparents, to read them to the little ones. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's terrific. Because it sounded like as you were describing it, was some of my favorite episodes of Twilight Zone meets Stuart Little, and I loved it when the cat goes away and has the adventures as you Stuart Little. But there's that wonderful Twilight Zone episode with Robert Duvall. It's one of the best ever, and he goes to the museum and there's the little house and there's the woman in it, and he's the only one that can see her and see what happens to her. It's wonderful. He's young and he's dynamic. It's wonderful. Your heart breaks for him.
Well, Twilight Zone was always one of my favorite television shows.
Nice.
And you may be describing what the basis of these books, certainly book 1 is in the village, the Worley village mysteries of the little people come to life and get out in the department store and wreak havoc. And Flossie is known to cavort in the socks department and upset the displays. And it's they're just delightful, I must say. And there was no part of me in that. Those were all channeled, whereas current books are co-authored, but those were all Pax.
Oh, wow. That's going on my reading list for sure.
Well, it really shows, too, a flexibility of spirit. I mean, I look at Pax as a guide and a mentor and a leader and the wise one, but there is this other side. I mean, we wrote 2 children's books.
Yeah.
He did. And they're absolute delight. Delightful.
I can't wait. Tanya just said they sound amazing. So we are going to treat ourselves sooner rather than later.
Oh, what fun. I've taken them into schools and read parts of them to combined classes of 5- and 6-year-olds, I think. It was just too much fun.
Do you mention that they came from a different kind of author, or you?
No.
I know. We have a ways to go. We'll get there.
You, that would just be a little too woo-woo.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, believe me. I know.
Now, I like to be invited back occasionally,
Yeah. No, we all take the journey. I know I have to be very careful. Sometimes I have to compartmentalize my life, although as I get older, I don't. But there are certain opportunities that come, teaching opportunities, colleges especially. Well, they kind of vet you, and then they go, "Oh, what is this very strange thing that you do?"
I want to tell you before you make me go that I am so envious. I am so envious of your experience with your 2.5 hours missing time.
Oh.
And your otherworldly experience there. I've never had such a thing, and I often think I would. But I'm cognizant of the fact that there's probably a reason why I haven't. We each receive things as we're meant to, and I guess I'm not. But I just, I love it when I hear about your story and what it has brought to your life. That's the key, I think.
Yeah, yes, I agree. So 198 episodes, and I've never had a guest say to me, "When you make me go." We try to keep it to an hour and 15 minutes because that's what the audience likes, and they have to go on and make their dinner and prep for the day tomorrow. And also, I like to when I converted to audio for the radio station, where it'll play in 3 weeks on radio, anything more than an hour and 15 minutes, the engineering program does not work as well
Oh,
as it should.
okay.
So there
Well,
are practical things, but I could talk to you all night, just so you know that.
well, I have to tell you that over the years since the Do Unto Earth interviews began, I have never enjoyed an interview as much as I have enjoyed speaking with you.
Oh, well,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
So are you what are you working on currently?
Oh, you want to hear?
Yeah,
The,
please.
the next book with Pax, I am into, not very far, but I've had the title for quite a while, and I'm now channeling. And the working title is Love Can Stop the Bullets. Now, what are the bullets? Hatred, racism, war, corruption, all of the ugliness in our world. And love, imagine. Pax likes to use the word imagine. All we need is love. And what I've just put together is I've likened our current day bullets of nastiness and horrid behaviors and warring, etc., to the 7 deadly sins.
Okay.
And I'm just doing that now. I've got the biblical 7 deadly sins and brought them into our current world, our current time, and equating how they were then called with what's wrong in our world today. And now we will go on to flesh it out, and I don't know where it's going. I'm thinking Pax probably does.
Yeah.
But it will be, and Pax wrote something just while I was waiting for you today, when I was thinking about it. He said this book will be the threshold for change in our time. So that's exciting. So it'll be about how, if we functioned in love rather than hate and all of these others that are negative and behaviors, we couldn't possibly shoot somebody if we functioned in love. We couldn't possibly attack another country. We couldn't function in corruption, and all of that if we functioned in love. So could that happen in our lifetimes? Don't know, but the word has got to be written. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and any light workers say if enough are, will reach an inertia, will reach a critical mass, and we can change. And that goes right back to what you were saying. So I hope that you will come back when the new book comes out. I'll do a review, and then I hope you'll come back as a guest.
Oh, you couldn't keep me away. Thank
All
you,
right,
Joey.
excellent. Thank you so too much too. All right, guys. So we ran a little long tonight, but terrific, inspiring, and we need this. We need this inspiration. You heard it from the divine wisdom source, not just from Joey. Keep that flame tended. Surround yourself with people who will keep those winds away. And I love this idea of all you need is love, right? The Beatles said it, and Pax says it. And Pax is saying it through Carole and with Carole, which is wonderful. So thank you all. Join us next week. We're doing Project Monarch, and it was so important, and really doing the homework to paint this picture for you. Everybody in the chat room is just saying how everything, it was a wonderful hour and 15 minutes. Thank you all so much. See you next week. 2 more episodes, and we'll be at episode 200, and Wallace Wagner will be talking with me about alternate biblical interpretations of what if the God in the Bible, and Michael Carter and other guests that we've had have talked about this too. What if these are interdimensional beings? It sounds a bit ancient aliens, but without the kooky haircuts and the overdone tans and all that kind of thing. Very, very serious work. So excited for that too. Charles says it was inspiring, and I agree. I feel very inspired. So I'm going to try my best to keep you all inspired, keep me inspired, because we can be bigger than what's going on in our world right now. So good night, peace, love. I am so grateful for you all. Good night.